In the beginning there was a world freshly born, skies still learning their colors, rivers still finding their paths, and two people, expelled from paradise, building something new with nothing but their hands and each other. Adam and Eve had left the garden behind, but life, stubborn and relentless, moved forward anyway, and from that love the first children came into the world. The firstborn was Cain. He arrived loud, fierce, full of fire. A boy who grabbed the earth with both fists from the moment he could walk. He grew into a farmer, someone who understood the soil, who respected the slow patience of seeds becoming harvests. Cain found his identity in what he could build, what he could grow, what he could control. Then came Abel, quieter, gentler. Where Cain burned, Abel glowed. He became a shepherd, spending his days among the soft hills, caring for animals, moving with the rhythm of open land. People were drawn to him the way you are drawn to a fire on a cold night, not because he demanded it, but because something about him was simply warm. Two brothers, two very different souls, and for a time that was enough. But tension has a way of growing quietly, like weeds between the rows. Both brothers brought offerings to God. It was an act of devotion, a gesture of gratitude for the lives they had been given. Cain brought the fruit of the ground, the harvest of his labor, what his hands had produced. Abel brought the firstborn of his flock, the very best of what he had. God looked upon Abel's offering with favor, and Cain's, he did not. No one fully understands why. Perhaps it was the quality of what was offered, perhaps it was the heart behind it, perhaps it was something only God could see. But what happened next was entirely human. Cain's face fell. His jaw tightened. Something dark and hot moved behind his eyes. It was not just disappointment. It was the particular kind of pain that comes when someone else receives what you believed was meant for you. God noticed, and gently, he asked Cain why he was angry. He told him that if he did what was right, acceptance would come, that the choice was still his, that what crouched at the door of his heart had not yet won. But Cain did not listen. He could not hear anything over the noise of what he felt. He asked Abel to walk with him into the field, just the two of them, away from everything, and in that field, far from any witness, Cain turned on his brother. The world's first murder was committed not by a stranger, not by an enemy, but by family, by someone who had grown up beside him, who had shared the same parents, the same stories, the same beginning. Abel did not come home. When God asked Cain where his brother was, the answer came cold and defiant, a question thrown back like a stone. Am I my brother's keeper? It is one of the most haunting lines in all of human history, not because of what it says, but because of what it reveals. That something in us, something ancient and fragile, wants permission to not care, wants to believe that what happens to the people beside us is not our responsibility. God already knew the answer, of course. He always did. The ground itself had cried out, and so Cain received his consequence, not death, which surprised many, but exile. He was sent away from the ground that had received his brother's blood. The very soil he had dedicated his life to tilling would no longer yield for him. He would wander, restless, never fully at home anywhere again. Cain was terrified, not of guilt, perhaps, but of what might happen to him out there alone. He feared that anyone who found him would kill him, and God, in a strange and complicated mercy, placed a mark on Cain, not as a brand of shame, but as protection, a sign that his life still had consequence, still had meaning, even now. It is one of the most quietly devastating details in the entire story. Even after everything, he was not abandoned. Cain went east into the land of Nod. He built a city, he had children, life continued, altered, hollowed in places, but continuing. The world did not stop because something terrible had happened in it. It rarely does. Back with Adam and Eve, the grief of losing both sons, one to death, one to exile, settled over them like a second expulsion. They had already lost paradise. Now they lost their children in a single act of violence that neither of them could have predicted or prevented, and yet life again refused to stop. Another son was born to them. His name was Seth. And through Seth, the long, complicated, beautiful, and broken story of humanity kept going. The lineage continued. People were born, families were formed, generations stretched forward like a river that does not ask permission to flow. The story of Cain and Abel is not really about farming versus shepherding. It is not even about offerings. It is about what happens when comparison takes root inside a person. What envy does when it is fed instead of confronted. How quickly the people closest to us can become the targets of pain we do not know how to name. It is the oldest story, and somehow it still sounds like yesterday. If you want to know what happened to Seth and what came next, because it gets significantly more chaotic from here, subscribe and stay close. The next story is waiting.